Hello, this is Photography Gamer, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm reviewing Chernobylite for the PS4, the game's also out on Xbox and Windows. Chernobylite is a sci-fi survival game developed by the Farm 51. The game takes place in Pripyat, a contaminated exclusion zone surrounding ground zero of the Chernobyl disaster. Following the incident, a substance known as Chernobylite began to appear. The zone is inhabited by a military force as well as creatures referred to as shadows, who are both hostile to the game's main protagonist Igor. Igor arrived in the zone in search of his fiancée Tatiana, and his mission is to recruit allies throughout the zone to aid him in his mission to uncover what the hell is going on. So what's the game like to play? Well, once the prologue tutorial is out of the way, it's time to plan your first day in Pripyat. At the start of each day, you pick up your binoculars overlooking the zones and skim through the available missions. The map is broken down into small areas referred to as zones, but they aren't interconnected, so once you choose where to go, you're there for the entire day. You also have to allocate where your companions go to, and their success will vary depending on their health status and loadout. Now these missions vary from ones that progress the story to simple supply runs where you'll be searching for drops to replenish your base. But know this, you don't have to complete the missions. If you head to a zone and it's a little bit too dangerous, you can check out at any time using your teleportation device. Now, this structure does two things. It creates a solid base where each day you have this regimented style of activity, but it also does over time negatively impact your overall immersion, as you don't get to go days on end within the zone. So think of core gameplay a little bit like bite-sized chunks of stalking within the various regions. One thing I did like about the game world was that it's constantly evolving from day to day. The weather will change, which affects things like visibility. Radiation levels will alter too, depending on how the reactor is dispersing said radiation. Guards will move from one place to another from day to day, and you've also got to keep an eye out for radiation storms where the shadows will emerge from. During your days, you'll spend most of your time sneaking around the desolate areas, gathering resources and avoiding radiation hotspots that evolve daily. And despite the zones being relatively barren, you always feel like you're not alone, as the soldiers, NPCs and shadows may be lurking around every corner. To help you survive day to day, you've got a handy environmental analyzer which pulses to highlight collectible resources or informs you of the radiation. However, this too is a bit of an immersion breaker as it takes away some of the purpose of scavenging, as everything is really clearly marked on the screen. If the radiation gets on top of you, there are solutions like potassium iodine or other recipes that you can craft on the fly. Another handy gadget is your black hole generator, which lets you check out of the zone at any time if you need to call it a day. In terms of combat, I'd say the game is okay, it's solid. You start out with nothing but can find revolvers, shotguns and other firearms, but bullets are scarce, so you'll have to make each shot count. Stealth is an option, but at first your only way of taking down a soldier is to butcher him with a knife, which has a negative impact on your mental well-being. Firefights can be truly intense due to the hostile environments, and in the early game you will end up being captured and stuck in a prison that you'll have to escape from. In terms of AI, I'd say the enemies have a bit of a split personality. At times they seem to be hyper aware, and at others they're bloody awful. Like I saw two guards, I took my revolver out, I let off a shot from about 10 meters away and they did nothing. No reaction, they didn't hear it, they didn't see me, and it just felt like a massive immersion, problem. Now Chernobylite is marketed as a survival game, and you have to consider your health, how much radiation you've been exposed to, and also your psyche. All these factors can be remedied with medicine, alcohol or herbal remedies that you can craft at campfires in the field. Okay, let's talk about the companions. Well, as you progress, you'll make lots of new friends who can join your ranks, but they also add more stress to the day-to-day life. They have to be fed, they will require a bed to sleep in at your base, and you'll also have to manage your personal relationship with them, as certain choices may irreparably damage your bond. Companions also have the ability to teach you new skills, perks or buffs, but these comrades add some interesting community management issues to deal with, like food rations. At the end of the day, you've got to allocate who gets what food, so you'll all have your favourites. For me, one of the best parts of the game was the freedom to express your own personality in your gameplay choices. If you want to please everyone, you can try, but you'll more than likely upset everyone in Pripyat at some point. Lie to the people, be brutally honest, kill their friends, live and let live, refuse them food or medicine. All these things are possible, but be aware your group has a massive impact on the endgame heist success rate. In Chernobylite, death is not the end of the action. When you die, you visit this other realm, which basically acts like a surreal memory lane, where you'll get to see all of your key choices in the game. And to make this even cooler, you can interact with these memories and go back in time to change your actual decision. You do need Chernobylite to do this though, but it is a really unique kind of factor to put in a game where you can actually go back and change what you've done. Really interesting. Okay, what else is there to do in Chernobylite? Well, the game features base building, but only the interiors mainly. In your warehouse, you can craft items assuming you've got the necessary resources. It's very similar to the settlement system that they had in Fallout 4, for example. As I said before, you can build beds for your companions, crafting stations are plentiful, but there's also a nice variety of cosmetic items if you just want to make everything look a little bit nicer than the shithole that it really is. But the building, it's not always restricted to in your base. You can also build a small amount of stations within these zones themselves, such as campfires or basic crafting benches if you want to make something on the fly. You know, if you're in a zone and things are getting a little bit heated, you can find yourself a nice little cubby hole, build a campfire, make some medicine, tweak your guns and just make a little sort of mini base out in the field. And these will remain constant, so the next time you visit that area, you know where it is, you can go there and have a little another break. I particularly liked the gun modding benches, which brought back a kind of a memory from the Metro Exodus game, and it's got that kind of old school, kind of very, I don't know, gritty feel to it. Now the core aim of the game is to find Tatiana and complete the endgame heist. Preparation for that is the key, and making new friends, learning new intel, finding new technology, all these things affect your success rate. However, attempting the heist too early often ends in you being trolled by unforeseen issues resulting in your death. For me, the heist required a little too many hoops to be jumped through by the end, and you know, you will be glad when it's all over. In terms of story, Chernobylite has a lot of cool ideas woven into the narrative. It's a story with lots of moving parts and doesn't feel as rigid as other games, mainly due to your ability to time travel and alter your decisions from the past. The writing, however, is quite varied, with some very interesting and well-crafted segments mixed in with some that feel like they were from a cartoon. And it's that kind of, you know, tired tradition of gaming narratives being dumbed down because they're for childlike audiences. One major issue with the game is Igor, the main character. He's a pompous and self-righteous so-and-so, and it's just, you know, he's just not very likable. And the fact that you never see his face necessarily through the experience mostly, or others, it just feels quite impersonal and lifeless. The only face you see is Tatiana in these live action sequences. They're quite nicely done, but you know, it's like they didn't have a budget for faces or lip syncing or anything like that, and that does have a negative impact, and it makes you feel disconnected from the emotion of the story. Chernobylite is quite a complex game to break down, as you can tell from what I've just said. There's a huge amount of things going on, from the community management, survival crafting, etc. But I'd say the game does manage to hold it together for the most part. And stylistically, you know, it felt like a hybrid of the Metro games, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Fallout 4 and the Netflix show Dark. Visually, the game conveys the distressed and barren landscapes of Pripyat in a marvellous way. The weather effects, the radiation storms, all these things add to the tense and dark atmosphere. But the game has major issues when it comes to frame rate drops and image tearing, and there are also these really annoying borders that are constant on the screen. Like when you get injured, there's blood. When you get mentally compromised, there's shadow and these flashing things. It really just kind of is totally unnecessary. In terms of sound, the music is truly wonderful, with a somber and melancholy feel resonating throughout. The sound effects are fantastic with a kind of dark sci-fi edge, but you've got to talk about the voice acting here. First thing I'd say is you can have Russian or English voices. I would always prefer the native tongue, but sadly using the Russian voices isn't really workable. Why? Well, you know foreign language films, right? They've got subtitles at the bottom that you can read. And sadly, here, the subtitles are 10 times smaller than that you would see in a movie, which basically renders the Russian dialogue redundant for non-Russian speakers. I can't say whether the Russian performers do a good job either, as I'm not fluent, and unless you speak Russian, I don't know how you can actually judge their performance quality. So you'll end up using the English actors, and they vary wildly.
What do they say?
Every civilization is only 3 meals away from total anarchy.
I think Lenin said that.
Yeah, John Lennon, smart guy. I am the walrus. Goo-goo-goo-goo.
The writing doesn't really help them, to be honest, with some really infantile and disappointingly childish narrative. But generally there are really good sections as well, but I long for the day when a game can have really good writing throughout, with characters that are mature and not like trying to be like some cartoon, but hey, one day perhaps. Okay, what's good and what's bad? What's good? The game world has a tangible and disturbed atmosphere, the music and sound effects are wonderful, crafting, building and survival are pretty well balanced. There are so many cool and interesting ideas woven into the fabric of the game, the freedom to choose your own path is liberating, and it's one of those games that grows on you over time. What's bad? There were too many crafting stations for your base, meaning you'll spend half an hour to find the right one. The writing was very patchy with lots of infantile dialogue. The gameplay loop does start to become repetitive, and the way the game is structured, in days and small zones, doesn't allow players to really truly immerse into the wonderful world of Pripyat. So what's the verdict? Chernobylite is a very ambitious game that tries to stitch together several genres into one. The game is full of interesting ideas, subject matter and cool systems that help the game feel varied. But ultimately it did feel a bit muddled on the whole. Like they were trying to tick too many boxes and would have been better focusing on fewer systems but making them much better. Is it a survival game? Is it a S.T.A.L.K.E.R clone? Is it the new Fallout? Is it a building crafting game? I don't really know, I can't really say. It's very different to say what it is, but it is certainly interesting, if a bit flawed. General play also felt a little bit too stop-start, wake up, choose a mission, go to a small area, collect some stuff, go home, feed the group, craft some stuff, sleep, repeat. It is certainly organised, but I can't help feel the game would have been a great deal more immersive if you could have gone to the zones for days on end, build a smaller shelter out in a field and truly lose yourself in the experience. That isn't to say that it's not a good game, it is, but it did lose its way in the latter stages, and I'd say in terms of the narrative it isn't the best. But for a post-nuclear survival game where you have to manage a community, make tough choices and explore small ever-changing zones, you'd be hard pressed to find a better option right now on console. So yeah, Chernobylite is what I would call a good stopgap game for people waiting for S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, which is due out soon. For survival fans, sure, there is something interesting here, but as I said, it may be bit off more than it could chew, but still, it's a very worthy addition to the genre and one I would recommend checking out. So my score for Chernobylite is 7.5 out of 10. Okay, that was the review. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. This is Photography Gamer signing off. Thank you.